Today is the day of the important board meeting. Incompetent subcontractors, get out.
Taro, the head of the Japanese branch, tries to drive me away, treating me as a nuisance as I come from the headquarters. Despite my intention to discuss something critical for Taro's future, he somehow mistakes me for one of the subcontractors. Unable to make calm decisions, his character, which causes trouble for those around him, hasn't changed at all. Understood, then I'll leave. I bowed deeply and left the department. I have no idea why I came here, this is utterly unclear. Continuing this way might lead to the worst situation possible. But the worst situation refers to Taro. I headed straight to the airport. I boarded a private jet and left Japan. My name is Tyler Smith. I am a 42-year-old president of an advertising agency based in the U.S. It might be surprising to some that a Japanese person is the president of an American company. Indeed, America has many racial issues, and for an Asian like me, it's a tough world to live in. But in American society, there are opportunities for those with abilities. The reason I chose America as my life stage is because of my mother. I don't know any Japanese woman who lives as freely as my mother. After all, when I was in 3rd grade, she pursued her dreams and moved to America. My mother, a hairdresser, wanted to beautify the hair of people all over the world with just a pair of scissors. In Japan, she could only work with the consistently thick, brown hair. So she went across the sea for an apprenticeship to work with various types of hair. In a home without a mother, I had to work hard on household chores with my father. I did my own laundry and even cooked for myself. Though I was not a mama's boy, there were times I wished I could be pampered by her. Realizing that wasn't possible, I began to feel resentful towards her. Yet, I could never bring myself to dislike her. The adults in the neighborhood criticized my mother for being too unrestrained and felt sorry for us children. But my father completely rejected that criticism.
My wife is working hard. She's carrying our family's hopes with her as she trains in America.
But leaving her husband and little son, I question her as a mother.
I think giving up on dreams just because you become a parent isn't right. I've never had grand dreams myself and lived a prudent life. So my wife is a shining beacon to me. I'll support her all the way.
With my father saying this, it meant no one else had the right to criticize, and since then, no one in the neighborhood spoke ill of my mother. They were an unusual couple. But seeing them converse with smiles each time my mother returned home, I realized that this too was a form of love. And when my mother looked radiant and dazzling, it made me, her son, happy too. I never said it out of embarrassment, but my mother, with her refined beauty thriving in America, was my pride. She apprenticed at a salon in New York, and by the time I entered middle school, she was trusted enough to manage a branch. While living an unconventional life, we supported each other's growth as a family. An indispensable part of my childhood was Taro White, a boy a year older than me living nearby. His parents were very keen on education, making him study English from an early age, and indeed, Taro was good at it. Our region had established a sister city relationship with a city in California. There was an exchange student program, and Taro went on a short study abroad during the summer vacation of his 6th grade year. Photos of Japanese elementary school students smiling under the blue sky and sea were posted by the city office. And the exchange students received envious looks from their peers. In these events, Taro always stood at the center of the group photo, beaming with pride. When he returned, a welcome back ceremony was held at the city office. And he received a bouquet from the mayor as a representative of the exchange students. Perhaps because of these experiences, Taro boasted that he was better at English than any other child in our area. And he declared his intention to attend an university in America in the future. To Taro, I, whose mother was thriving in America, must have been a significant figure. Even though I didn't think much of it, he began to see me as a rival on his own. The trigger was when our teacher named us as the students who were proficient in English. The fact that we were not in the same grade was my only relief, being 1 year younger was quite a salvation. Because I was younger. There was no way I could be better than Taro, a strangely comforting thought that allowed me to stay out of the limelight. Taro constantly created opportunities to engage in English conversations with me, attempting to prove his superiority. I found it annoying but dealt with him as appropriate. Taro, obsessed with English, called me by my first name, Tyler, and insisted I call him simply Taro. I felt quite resistant to this, but I knew it was better not to oppose him too much. My parents did not provide me with special English lessons. In our laid-back, hardly urban town, few families emphasized English education.
Adults can learn English too. And teaching it too early might lead them to overlook essential basics during formal education later, thinking they already know enough.
However, I've always admired New York, where my mother lives, and after relentlessly listening to the language on TV and online videos, I acquired significant English skills. Upon entering middle school, Taro, then a sophomore, was the student council president, forcibly pushed the role of secretary on me in the student council. He seemed interested in my activities, probably wanting to keep an eye on me at all times. In middle school, I was careful to keep a low profile in everything I did. When Taro went on to attend the high school with the highest academic standing in the prefecture, I no longer hid my abilities and let them reflect in my grades. I was done with life involving Taro, so after graduating from middle school, I decided to take a completely different path. From the start, I didn't consider Japanese high schools and went on to attend a high school in America. Although I was quite confident in my English, it often did not suffice in America, and I struggled in the beginning. However, with my mother's help, I was able to enjoy a comfortable student life. After graduating from college, I joined a local advertising agency that has a branch in Japan. At that time, it wasn't a major company, and the distance between the president and the employees was close. We, the employees, called the president James, Jim, with trust and affection. Jim was very fond of Japan, having hosted numerous Japanese students in the past. Apparently, Japanese people look young, and I was nicknamed Tak by Jim and the older female employees, who adored me. Americans love home parties, and we employees often gathered at Jim's mansion to enjoy champagne. Jim's daughter Anna was there, and she became the idol of the staff. Being the youngest and looking younger than the other men, I found Anna always sitting next to me, sharing stories about her school. As time passed, by the time Anna graduated from college, we had become inseparable, and I proposed to her on the night of her graduation. Anna accepted the proposal with a smile, and we both reported the good news to Jim. The following year, we got married formally, and upon Jim's retirement, I took over the president role. Time passed, and it was almost 20 years since I joined the company. The company grew significantly, acquiring foreign advertising agencies, including one in Japan. When I learned that Taro was the sales director there, I felt a strange twist of fate. Being the president and Japanese, I always kept an eye on the subsidiaries' movements in Japan. Eventually, a report about an issue at the Japanese branch reached me. In the process of advancing a global advertising campaign targeting women over 40, there was a conflict with a modeling agency, which could be considered a subcontractor. The advertisement was to feature a 45-year-old Japanese model based in the U.S. However, just before finalizing the contract, Taro said, "With such an older woman, we can't capture the customer's hearts," which was taken as an offensive remark. The model was so appalled that she considered suing us for defamation. It was said that it wasn't a situation warranting the president's personal attention. But knowing Taro well from the past, I decided to have a thorough discussion. Thus, combining it with a visit home, I set foot in Japan after a long absence. As the company's president, I arrived in Japan secretly and immediately went to the branch office to meet Taro, the sales director. Without revealing my position as president, I simply stated I was from the headquarters and wanted to discuss the issue with the modeling agency causing the trouble. And I was let through to the sales department. Taro was surprised to see me after such a long time. But here too, I did not disclose the fact that I was the president, attempting to resolve the issue somehow. "Taro, it's been a while, how have you been?"
Could it be Tyler? It's been more than a while. What are you doing here?
"There's a modeling agency that's recently been causing some trouble." "Right, I thought I'd come and see if we could resolve this company's issue." With these words, Taro mistook me for an employee of the subcontracted modeling agency and treated me disdainfully.
So, after all this time, you come to talk about work, and you want me to solve a problem. What a nerve.
There's no need to be so dismissive. If we talk calmly, we should be able to settle things amicably.
Today is an important board meeting day. Incompetence of contractors, get out.
He treated me, who had come all the way from America, as a nuisance and tried to drive me away. I was trying to discuss something critical for Taro's future. Unable to make calm decisions, his character, which causes trouble for those around him, hasn't changed at all. Taro stood up, intending to leave me there and to attend the board meeting. My bewilderment slowly turned into anger. It was foolish of me to even try to help this man. I wanted to help him because we had known each other for so long, but now I couldn't care less. If he wants me to leave, then I really will leave. Understood, then I'll leave. I bowed deeply and left the department. I have no idea why I came here, this is utterly unclear. Continuing this way might lead to the worst situation possible. But the worst situation refers to Taro. A secretary swiftly approached me to inform me of new business. My schedule filling up by the minute, I couldn't afford to linger in Japan. Visiting an old friend or greeting a former mentor would have to wait for another opportunity. I headed straight to the airport and left Japan on a private jet. Upon arrival, another secretary who was waiting locally reported that Taro had called me several times. Apparently, after driving me away, Taro received a direct call from the president of the modeling agency. While in a hired car on the way back to the office, I called Taro, whose voice sounded slightly trembling, perhaps from being embarrassed.
I had no idea Tyler was the president of the headquarters. Please help me at this rate. I'll be sued by the model.
No apology after sending someone who came all the way from America away, if you don't change that attitude. Problems like this won't go away.
That's not true. I've managed without any issues until now. That model is just overly self-conscious and problematic.
Given the potential lawsuit against Taro, as the president of the headquarters, I decided to hear out the model directly. When I visited the modeling agency, I was led into a conference room. The model in question was from Japan, named Mary Brown. When Mary entered the conference room, she exuded a unique aura filled with a dignified beauty. Her almond-shaped eyes were striking. And her slender physique, typical of East Asians, with straight long brown hair, could be considered her charm points. Though I heard she was 45, she did not seem to be trying to look younger, but rather was filled with the allure of a mature woman. Taro seems to think that one cannot work as a model unless they are young. In Japanese society, being young is often praised, and appearing younger is seen as important. It seemed Mary was well aware of this.
I understand because I'm also Japanese, I know the trends there. However, this ad targets women in their 40s and beyond. My involvement should increase the chance that customers in that age group will consider the product, Mary said.
I really resonate with that. Japanese culture tends to celebrate youth. Both men and women try to look younger. It's rare to find someone who takes pride in their age like you do, I replied.
I despise that aspect of our society, which is why I moved my activities to America. Here, for the first time, I could be myself. I've tried to meet client expectations, but this time, it's impossible, Mary explained.
As we talked, I felt a growing desire to support Mary. Then, I discovered a small connection between us. Mary had stayed as a homestay student at Jim's house during her school days. She was close with Anna and was the woman who had made Jim fond of Japan. Jim had previously hosted a Japanese elementary student and had a terrible experience, leading him to dislike Japan.
Because of that boy Taro, Jim had developed a distaste for Japanese. But he hosted me out of kindness when I was in trouble, and it turned out he really liked me, Mary shared.
Thus, we found an unexpected connection between us. The next day after speaking with Mary, Jim came from his retirement in Florida to New York. Now, both Mary, who was currently in trouble, and Taro, had been homestay students at Jim's house.
Mary, who is dear to me, is upset, and it turns out that guy is still a jinx, Jim remarked.
The numerous blunders Taro had made during his homestay were coming to light. Taro had stayed at Jim's house during a short summer study program when he was in the 6th grade. Jim, a celebrity in town, was approached to host a student through the Sister City Exchange program. He was already fond of Japanese culture and was happy to accept. The fact that the exchange was facilitated by a municipal organization also provided reassurance. However, the Japanese boy who arrived, Taro, turned out to be quite a problem child. First, he had no heart of gratitude. Despite Jim's volunteer goodwill, Taro made financially demanding requests. While in California, Taro wanted to enjoy everything possible, dragging Jim to various tourist sites where Jim had to pay for meals and admission fees. Though Jim, a business owner, was not financially strained, the entitlement of these demands increasingly upset him. In California, where public transportation options like buses and trains are limited, Jim always had to drive him around. There were also issues like Taro sneaking into high-end boutiques while Jim looked for parking. Moreover, Taro entered Jim's study without permission, breaking important ornaments and staining cherished carpets. Although he apologized, his nonchalant demeanor conveyed no real remorse. Jim was disappointed, wondering if all Japanese were so brazen and shameless. Since Taro was the first Japanese person Jim deeply interacted with, he ended up disliking Japanese people overall. Living in America, the disparity between those who admire Japan and those who do not is quite striking. When a person of influence in society like Jim develops a dislike for Japan, it can make life very challenging here. Especially in a country where there's already a noticeable difference in attitudes towards Asians. It was Mary who thawed Jim's icy heart towards Japan. When Mary was a college student, she was staying with a nearby family whose head fell ill and was hospitalized. At the family's earnest request, Jim reluctantly agreed to take care of Mary. However, living with Mary turned out to be a pleasure. She was attentive to details and always considerate towards Jim. She took care of his young daughter, Anna, and most importantly, he recognized her humble nature. Ultimately, it should be a person's character, not their nationality, that defines them, I told him, and Mary responded with a modest smile.
The Japanese culture nurtured my character. It seems that boy did not pride himself on our culture, she said.
Through Mary, Jim came to appreciate the beauty of Japanese culture anew. After completing her exchange, Mary decided to live in America as a model and continued to have a warm friendship with Jim. If Jim wanted to visit Japan, Mary would volunteer as a tour guide. She took every opportunity to show him the wonders of Japan, and Jim became fascinated with the country. Thanks to these wonderful memories, it led to generous support for me later on. Furthermore, when Anna came of age, Mary also advised her on matters of relationship. Apparently, this romantic advice involved my relationship with Anna. Anna wanted to marry a Japanese man but was unsure if two people from different cultures could live together without problems. Mary was the one who encouraged Anna to marry me. In essence, Mary was one of my greatest benefactors. To ensure that neither Jim nor I would be burdened, Mary decided to file a lawsuit against Taro personally, rather than the company. A flustered Taro came to New York wanting to talk to me. It was then he first learned of the strong bond Mary, Jim, Anna, and I had built.
So, you married Jim's daughter, and on top of that, Jim's daughter is good friends with that old model. What luck I have.
Taro exclaimed, mistakenly believing I would naturally mediate for him and rejoicing. I told Taro firmly, I can't do that.
Why not? You could do me a favor, aren't we friends? He protested.
I am firmly on Mary's side. It's an advertisement showcasing the beauty of aging women. If this project succeeds in Japan, I'd like to use Mary for ads in America too. Finally, Taro realized the seriousness of the situation. After all, the reason Jim's heart had once frozen over was because of Taro. Believing that changing Jim's opinion could also alter his own situation, Taro next headed to Jim's place. However, his unannounced visit was a great inconvenience to Jim, who ended up shouting at him and sending him away. Eventually, the advertising campaign using Mary went ahead without Taro being involved. The person who took over the project, Williams, emphasized that Mary was 45 years old.
Let's teach the beauty of aging to Japanese consumers too. We'll overturn the notion that losing youth means disconnecting from the world of beauty.
Mary's appearance gave a great impact to Japan's beauty industry. Especially popular among women in their 30s and older, and it became the talk of the global advertising industry that year. Previously unknown in Japan, Mary became a world-famous supermodel representing Japan. Williams, who made Mary's advertisement a big hit, was promoted to sales director, while Taro was demoted. Unsatisfied, Taro, ever the American enthusiast, quit his job, saying, "In America, changing jobs is normal." His attitude only increased the exasperation among his peers. Rubbing the salt into the wands, the court case concluded, and Taro was ordered to pay Mary a significant amount in damages. American courts often award much higher damages than in Japan. Taro was told by his lawyer that an appeal would likely to fail. Taro decided to sell his house to raise the money to pay Mary. Having lost his house, Taro, with his wife and 2 children, moved into a small apartment. Desperate to find a new job, Taro relied on various connections, but the responses were not encouraging. The news had spread that he had infringed on the rights of a model used in advertising, and his peers in the industry shunned him. Thinking to change his field, Taro tried to leverage his English skills in another industry. However, his abilities were only sufficient for everyday conversation. And in an era where AI could handle such interactions, his skills were not enough. Failing to secure employment, he attempted to open an English conversation school in his apartment, but no students enrolled. Thus, Taro was driven into a difficult situation. On the other hand, our life was going smoothly. My mother, who had continued her work as a hairdresser, won a haircut contest in New York. The finals, held in Times Square, were televised, and the local community was greatly excited about the achievement of an experienced woman from Japan. My father also came to support her. And seeing them celebrate together, I glimpsed their unique marital life and deeply felt that the form of marriage varies by individual. Reflecting on it, I owe my current self to my parents' liberal way of thinking. Thus, I renewed my appreciation for my own family and decided to respect and support Anna's way of life and her dreams. I learned about Taro's subsequent misfortunes from gossip-loving colleagues at the Japanese branch. And it was indeed a tragic tale. Taro, unemployed and spending his days watching TV in his cramped apartment, became a source of frustration for his wife. Unable to endure their marriage any longer, she left him, placing a divorce notice before departing. With 2 children who were expensive to care for, she demanded substantial alimony and child support. Forced to deplete his savings for living expenses, Taro found himself in a desperate situation where he could no longer afford to be picky about jobs. And he took up a position in building cleaning. After sending money to his wife and children, little remained for Taro, leading him to cut back on food expenses. Gradually, he lost motivation for everything. Facing a harsh reality that he could not confront sober, he became pessimistic about life and turned to alcohol. Neighbors occasionally saw Taro, a shadow of his former self, shrunken and aimlessly wandering near his apartment, heading to the convenience store to buy liquor. A year since the incident with Mary, our family experienced significant changes. Anna was pregnant and recently gave birth safely. The baby, a beautiful girl with blue eyes, was named May, taking one character from Mary's name, with whom we still keep in touch. Jim, absolutely smitten with May, began visiting our home frequently from Florida. Now based in New York, my parents also come to see their granddaughter whenever they can. Having a growing family really boosts your motivation. We must work hard now to ensure May has a wonderful future ahead of her. Once child-rearing settles down, Anna dreams of studying politics at university. That's a wonderful aspiration, and I fully intend to support her in every way. I even feel a sense of reliability in Anna, who wants to become a politician to make society better. If it comes to that, you should become the first female president, I tell Anna, encouraging her to aim high.